nominated for the Hall of Fame for the second time, this time as a coach and not a contributor. What were
Right.
your thoughts when you heard that about your grandfather?
First thing when I found out, I actually knew unofficially about a week or so before it had been released to everybody. So we really couldn't say anything because we didn't know if it was an official thing. But the first thing that went through my mind was, really, it's about time.
John McClendon, I think, has been referred to many times as the forgotten Jayhawk. He was one of the first African American graduate of our department here in the Department of Health, Sport, and Exercise Sciences. He's from Hiawatha, Kansas. He went on to become a legendary basketball coach at the college level and at the professional level. He is sometimes referred to as the inventor of the fast break. He broke a ton of racial barriers here at KU. He integrated the pool here in Robinson Center. He he was the first black student body president here at KU. So really a civil rights pioneer, and then a great basketball coach also, who just got inducted into the Hall of Fame as a coach this year, finally, after being in just as a contributor.
Because from my perspective, kind of like you said, I didn't really think of him as being as much of a big deal as he was until I got older and could really appreciate it. But you look at history books and record books, and as a coach and the stuff that he did with the championships that were won, and being one of the founding members of the CIAA, he was the first African-American coach to coach a pro team. So, he should be recognized as a coach.
I think at his level and at his time, he was an elite coach, a top 2 or 3 coach. He won back-to-back NAIA national championships when kind of the NAIA was the elite level of basketball. He coached at the professional level for the Cleveland Pipers and the professional leagues there that were just beginning. I think the opportunities that he was allowed to have, he thrived in. He went to the Olympic team. He was revered in China for the work he did there with the basketball when they went there for the Olympics. So I think at every level, as great as he was allowed to be because of his race, he was the best that he could be. I think if he coached now, he'd be a top 3 basketball coach or top 5 basketball coach. I think whatever he was allowed to do, whatever level he was allowed to be at, he was going to be the best at. He was just a really talented and really brave individual. It's possible. I think his story and the kind of barriers that he broke led to a lot of things, especially in terms of just this perception that it was black and white basketball players played a different game, or it was just, I think it kind of normalized the fast break. It normalized the style of play, that you could be successful. This is like a more entertaining game, more entertaining way to watch. I think in terms of KU's campus, he did a lot for the integration of the campus, the integration of our department, the integration of the pool here, even the integration of the prom, all these things that he doesn't get as much credit as he should for. I think probably because he was such a good basketball coach and he has other accomplishments. To me, those are some of the more impressive things that don't get talked about a bunch because he was such an elite basketball coach too. I think for me, at least for me personally, just kind of the civil rights achievements that he had are what I think we remember the most for. But from a sport and basketball sense, he didn't at that time basketball was played at a slower pace, and teams were thought to pass it 10 times before you shoot, or all these cliches that you often hear. And if you watch videos of his teams and some of the documentaries, you can see it looks like basketball now. They push up the court, they fast break, they try to score quickly. It really was an enjoyable brand of basketball to watch, and he was kind of one of the first people to take some of those chances to do that, which was really against the norm at that point in time. And then he coached for the Olympics team. He really was a renowned coach who, for whatever reason, I think it hasn't got the credit for that until like the last 3 or 4 years, which is something that I've been really happy to see. Yeah, so probably one of my favorite John McClendon stories. At that time, it was not really allowed for black and white players to play against each other. But John McClendon and some of the folks at the Duke Medical School thought, rightfully so, that was a bit ridiculous. And so they set up a game between John McClendon School, which is one of the best schools in their division, and the Duke Medical School, which is one of the best schools in their division, and they played in the gym on the campus. And there's a whole great book about it by Scott Ellsworth. But essentially, what they do is they sneak onto the campus, they get the players in the gym, and they play this secret game between them. And say a couple minutes in, there's this really hard foul, and they're afraid the teams are going to get up and fight, but nothing happens. just like a regular basketball game. And so they continue to play on. John McClennan's team beats the Duke Medical School, which was really good at that time. And then the kind of amazing part is after that, they kind of all start talking and they all get to know each other and they say, hey, let's split up. And so they split the teams. And so they're playing against each other. They have some black players and some white players on the team, and they play against each other. And there's kind of the iconic story of some people heard what was going on, some students heard what was going on. And so they would kind of press their faces up against the windows to try and watch this game that was happening behind closed doors. Just from the outside looking in, and just from the stories that are told, I can't imagine, I tell my students this, the amount of adversity that he had to overcome. When he was here at KU, there was a swimming requirement. You had to be able to swim to get your degree. And he was a great swimmer. He was a lifeguard at this pool in the summer in Hiawatha, so he was a great swimmer. But he couldn't swim because of his color in the pool here. And so their kind of solution was, well, you don't have to do the swimming requirement, right? We know you can swim, you don't have to do the swimming requirement, right? And I think 95% of people, maybe 99% of people, especially at that time, would have said, okay. But he said, no, I'm going to do what everybody else does. So he jumped in the pool, and they drained it, right? And he said that, they said, we're going to drain it every time you get in, right? And he has the famous line of, you're going to have a really big water bill then, because I'm going to keep getting in. And so he made a deal with, at that time, Adolph Rupp, who was the head of the department, and said, if you integrate the pool, there's no problems for 2 weeks, then let's just keep it integrated, right? We can show that there'll be no problems. So he said, okay. So they integrated the pool, and John got with all the black students on campus, which at that point in time there weren't that many, and they just stayed away from the pool for 2 weeks. So there'd be no problems, no matter what happened. And came back, and Adolph Rupp said, I heard what you did, but I'll hold up our end of the deal. So he integrated the pool here. So even that just like small act of courage, which the easy thing would have been to say, okay, I'll get my degree, I'll move on, I'll move on with my own life and just take care of myself, right? He went above and beyond to really make a big change just by a small gesture. What now looks like a small gesture, but at that time, just imagine that pressure and the monumental pressure that had to be to swim in that pool where nobody wants you to be when there's an easy way out. When somebody's saying, here, just do this and you can be out. But he chose not to do that. So just stories like that tell me that he believed in something bigger than him and wanted to make a bigger impact, which I think is incredibly admirable and something that is, even now, I'm still in awe of hearing stories like that. I think when he brought his dominant NAIA teams to Kansas City, they're an all-black team, at that point in time would make specific accommodations for them. So they would stay at different hotels and they would eat in different restaurants, right? And again, the easy thing to do would have said, okay, great, we're going to come here, we're going to play in this tournament, we'll make these accommodations for us. And he said, no, we want to be treated just like everybody else, right? And so they were the first black basketball team to stay in one of the hotels downtown in Kansas City, right? And he just always didn't take the easy way out. Right? He always saw areas and small steps for progress that he could help make. They kind of, once you break that barrier, once you realize that the norms and traditions are really ugly and are outdated and don't need to be emphasized anymore. He was kind of one of the first people in many different opportunities to kind of break those down, right, and be the guinea pig, make the person who followed him, right, have an easier time about it, right, to be the second person that swims in Robinson Pool who's not white, right, so that he be the second basketball team that stays downtown at the hotel, right. He broke that barrier for other people. So I think that's a really incredible legacy to leave.
Basketball was something that, he did and he loved, but it wasn't who he was. That's why I say I always knew him as granddad and not really as a coach, even though we all called him coach. So you realize that he was, but it really didn't consume him. The biggest thing I remember and loved was just the time that we spent together and, how down to earth he was. Just look him up, know your history.